Our first order of business is to approve the minutes from our past meeting.
Madam Chairman, this is one of the largest set of minutes that I've ever reviewed, but I do find them in order, and without objection, I make a motion that they be approved.
I'll second that.
Very good, thank you. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Very good. All right, Health Departments. Do we have our newly crowned Mrs. America 2022? Oh my goodness. Welcome. Where's the crown? I'm disappointed.
It's in the car, actually.
Okay.
I didn't want to get it wet. Yes, I actually keep it with me, as I know that I will have many appearances I'll be able to make over the next 365 days that I'm very excited about. But I do want to take this time, right before I get started, to thank each and every one of you all for your support of me as I did go on to win the title of United States of America's Mrs. And I'm so excited about this opportunity. And all that it's going to entail as I continue to empower, inspire, and uplift us all. And so I'm very excited and overwhelmed and overjoyed by all the messages that I'm receiving. I'm trying to get back to everyone, and I will do it hopefully here in the next 24, 48 hours. But good evening, Mayor Ketchum, Madam Chairman, and Commissioners of the committee. Tonight I will be presenting the Health Department report of community health outreach and providing COVID-19 updates. So at this time, will you please take a look at the January 2022 report of community health outreach. As you look at our columns, our numbers are slowly but surely starting to increase in the protect, promote, and improve. Our staff is continuing to work very hard to ensure that we test, vaccinate, and provide education and guidance to help mitigate the spread of COVID-19 here in our county, but then also getting back to our traditional public health services that we were offering prior to COVID-19. I do want to point out a few bright spots that's not listed on your report, but something that I received. For the past 4 months, so from October 2021 to January 2022, we have administered over 9,542 tests in just 4 months. So almost 10,000 tests have been administered just from our health department alone. Additionally, as we look at vaccinations, our staff has been able to vaccinate over 4,521 individuals within those 4 months. And this is just our health department staff only, during 3 or 4 short hours every single day. We were also the highest when it came to the amount of vaccines and testing to be able to be administered within our region of 12 other counties. So I'm very excited that our staff continues to provide education, resources, but also testing and vaccinations. Now moving on to our COVID-19 updates, the county has been trending down from our Omicron surge since our peak cases in January 2022. We will continue to monitor the data as it becomes readily available and report this data weekly, which is the same rate at which the state is now publishing all the data. Our testing, will continue to offer testing, and I do want to bring up one point of concern at the end of my report for us to possibly extend our testing over at State Farm. But we are testing currently at the State Farm Memorial Building from 8:30 a.m. to 12, Monday through Friday, and then also administering the rapid self-test kits and giving those available 8:30 to 12, and then Monday through Friday at our both health departments from 8:30 to 4:30 while supplies last. Contact tracing, so a couple additional things that have happened since our last meeting. So several nationally recognized organizations did issue a joint statement in January recommending that states begin to transition away from universal contact tracing. Based on these recommendations, the Tennessee Department of Health did shift away from universal contact tracing and contract tracing. Individuals who are COVID-19 positive or think they have been exposed should still follow the recommended guidelines to prevent the spread of the virus. However, the Tennessee Department of Health, which also includes our health department, will no longer be investigating and contact tracing every single contact trace when it comes to COVID-19. As a reminder, the Tennessee Department of Health does not collect or report information on self-test. Anyone with a positive lab test should report to the Tennessee Department of Health will receive a text message moving forward. No personal information will be collected. The text message will come from a 629 number, so it's 629-269-9780. We'll make sure this information gets out to the public as well, but that's where the text message will come from. So as of February the 14th, the Tennessee Department of Health also will no longer provide personal letters documenting the isolation and quarantine guidelines, recommendations for contacts and close contacts. So both the CDC and the Tennessee Department of Health discourages employers and schools from requiring a medical note for clearance for return to work or school after an individual has had COVID-19. Those who test positive for COVID-19 may provide a documentation of their positive test results, such as a photo, printout of lab results, or note from a provider that administered the test to indicate their exclusion from a personal activities during this isolation period. As always, if anyone has questions regarding the isolation and quarantine guidance, they can visit the Tennessee Department of Health guidance, which is located at tn.gov/coronavirus isolation quarantine release guidance. The Tennessee Department of Health will also continue to investigate the clusters and outbreaks in high-risk settings such as long-term care facilities and shelters. So that is a lot, but that is the new recommendation that's come from the Tennessee Department of Health from the CDC as far as close contacts. Moving forward with vaccinations, we will continue to offer COVID-19 vaccinations, and currently we are still offering the Pfizer for first, second, and booster doses Monday through Friday from 1:30 to 3 at the Rutherford County Health Department located at 100 West Burton Street. Individuals are also encouraged to check vaccines.gov to find a location that's offering their preferred vaccine. Appointments are encouraged but not recommended, and as a reminder, all COVID-19 vaccinations are free. As of yesterday, the number of single vaccines reported for our county is a little bit over 424,000, and we have a little bit over 56% of individuals who are fully vaccinated. I do want to just reiterate that our guidance to Tennesseans remains unchanged in terms of practicing the necessary safety measures to prevent the spread of COVID-19. The vaccine is our biggest and best defense against the continued spread of this virus. We also encourage individuals to stay home when they are feeling sick or experiencing symptoms, and to get a test and follow recommended quarantine and isolation guidelines if you have tested positive or been in a close contact to someone. I would also like to bring up at this time an extension for the State Farm building. As we have not prepared fully to move back our testing to the health department, even though our numbers have slowly but surely declined as far as our testing, we would like to extend it for at least 1 more month so that we can move back our testing and vaccinations fully to the health department and to allow our staff time to prepare for this transition back to the health department.
And so you said you want to extend it 4 months? Is that what you just
1
said?
month.
1 month.
For 1 month.
Okay. What's the date, Mayor? What's the date on those?
All right, take your mask down. Let me see what you're saying. You want to extend testing at State Farm?
Yes.
Okay, I thought we were eliminating testing on the 28th.
Yes, so testing is supposed to eliminate on the 28th. We wanted to see if we could extend it 1 more month.
Okay, well, I sent them
yeah.
notice Friday that we were no longer using that effective March 1st, but if you need another month, I'll go back to them.
Yes, if we can
Okay.
see if we can get 1 more month in, and I know we had to bring it to the commission and then take it to them, so I wanted to make sure we do that first,
I'll be happy to call first thing in the morning.
pending that we can stay there, so.
Okay, one more month.
Yes, it's just
Okay.
1 more month and we'll be able to move back.
Yes, ma'am, I'll take care of that.
It's with the anticipation also, if y'all don't mind, it's with the anticipation also that we will probably move back all of our testing capacities back to the health department and do those on special days, just kind of how we're doing right now with walk-ins. But right now, seeing our numbers and the way they are, I do not want to go and do anything that may require for us to have to go back to State Farm.
Okay,
And so you want to keep that through the last day of March, so
Yes,
March
ma'am.
31st?
okay, I got it.
Great. I would like to entertain a motion for that, to ask the mayor to go and see if we can stay there till March 31st. All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Any opposed? Very good, thank you.
Approve the report?
Y'all done?
Yes, ma'am, I'm done.
All right, are there any questions for LaShann on her report? I'll entertain a motion, we approve the report as presented.
Second.
Good. All in favor, please say aye. Thank you. Thank you so much. We appreciate you.
Thanks, LaShawn.
All right, community care report. Mayor?
Thank you, Madam Chairman, members of the committee. Last week, I received a check from the Christy Houston Foundation. It was a little over $200,000. It is the second payment to go towards Phase 2, which is the additional phase. We've now completed Phase 1, so we'll be working cosmetically inside the building on Phase 2 with this grant from Christie Houston. We also, at the last board meeting last week, board authorized me to go ahead and sign the contract with Johnson and Bailey Architectures. We will be moving forward on the design for the new daycare facility located behind the current community care building. We currently run a daycare facility in a double-wide trailer. This will be a permanent building with a tornado shelter in it. It will be licensed through the State Department of Health up to 125 students at that facility. It will be the first, to our knowledge, the first public, and not the first public, but it'll be the first daycare facility that is open 24/7, 24 hours a day. So we're excited about that opportunity. If you recall, back in the fall, we ran a survey for all of our county employees, especially those in the public safety sector who work on second and third shifts, and a lot of them don't have any place to take their child on the second, third shift. So this is going to be 24/7 that this facility will be open, especially for our EMS, public, fire department, fire rescue, sheriff's department, who have those other shifts. We're fortunate that we have the full stainless steel kitchen currently in the nursing facility, so we won't have to build it inside of the daycare facility. So they'll just be able to cart it out when they're preparing the meals, when the kids come in. And you know, a lot of times, second, third shift, they'll be sleeping or doing their homework, hopefully, just like at home. But give an opportunity for our employees. It'll be basically a retention tool for county employees, as well as a recruiting tool for the county to have this facility. So, along with Commissioner Cook on the board and the other members of the board, they're excited to make this announcement.
Do you know what the age range is going to be for this? Is it going to be school-age children? I'm just curious how we're going to get them to school.
It will be, though I think they're going to go all the way up to age 12, like in the summertime, but from 6 months and above. It'd be the responsibility of the parents. We don't have transportation. It'll be responsibility of the parents to get them to school.
Any questions for the mayor? I'll entertain a motion to approve that report.
Move to approve.
All in favor,
I'm sorry.
please?
Lisa?
I'm sorry, I was asking, is community care paying for the architect? Is community care paying the architect?
Yes, they will.
They're handling that
Yes, ma'am.
piece of it? Okay.
I had a motion and a second. Is that correct? You the second, Carol? Second. Yep. All in favor, please say aye. Okay. Any opposed? Very good. Thank you. All right. Lisa, are you Miss Jolly tonight? Very good. All right.
Always jolly.
Yeah, special projects report. So they always give this to us in advance. It's usually pretty routine, just paying of the bills. Is there anything of note you want to point out? Any questions for Lisa on the special projects? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Very good, thank you. School board, welcome. And I did find in my list, if anybody else has there with them of the enrollment they shared with us last month, I just happened to be a pack rat and didn't clean out my notebook, so I have mine, but.
Well, good evening on this nice afternoon. Not raining too much. Just glad to be here. All right, on January the 29th, the school board met and over a long discussion looking at our building program. The following requests will be made to add some additions onto our large comprehensive high schools. Blackman High School is one of them. It has an enrollment currently at 1,970. It's built for $2,493. Laverne High School has a current enrollment of 2,031. It's got a capacity of about 2,300. Oakland High School has a 1,959 students, has an enrollment, or excuse me, a capacity of 2,323. And Riverdale High School, which has currently, but keep in mind that there's going to be about 200 students just from the rezoning alone that will be coming over this year. It has 1,804. It will, like I said, it will pick up at least 200 next year, and then it will also have some growth. And then the last one is Smyrna High School. Smyrna High School has 2,137 kids. It has a capacity of 2,395. Now, of these 5 projects here, 42 total portable classrooms. One of the things we know about our high schools is we have a lot of feeders that come into them. One of the biggest issues that we're seeing on the western end of the county is where our growth is occurring. Stewart's Creek High School, for example, we can't add on to Stewart's Creek High School. So any kind of addition on to Blackman would be to alleviate that overcrowdedness at Stewart's Creek. And same thing with Oakland. Oakland could siphon off in the future some additional students, just in case Riverdale, keep in mind, even with these additions, they're going to grow. All of them are growing. So right now, I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Lee, and he's going to kind of walk you through the process of what it's taken us currently with our renovations. You might want to go over our current renovations that we're doing and where we are with those, and then start with what this would look like.
Good evening. Our current projects that we have going, we have Smyrna Middle Annex renovation that we're working on. It's about 50% at this time. We're anticipating it being ready by August. We have the Rockville Middle classroom addition. Materials and weather are not being real conducive, but we're making progress. We will have a large number of the classrooms ready. We may not have them all, but we'll have enough to be able to move the vast majority of the children out of portables into the building. We have Rockville Elementary, the annex addition. It's going well. I know Commissioner P. was excited to see the crane go up. The last time I saw him, he rides by there every morning and gives me an update every couple of days to let me know what's going on. But that project's coming along well. At this time, we're close to completing our Buchanan Elementary sewer project. We have an outdated pump system there, and our TDEC permit's getting more difficult each year. It dumps into the river there, and that's one of our 177 fund projects, and we're close to completing it, and I don't know who's going to be happier, TDEC or us, to be out of that pump station. We're tying into the city sewer. Central Magnet, they're completed with the HVAC. We're in the testing and getting everything balanced just right situation. We're fixing to start 2 HVAC projects, one at Smyrna and one at Laverne High. Both of those projects are about $1.5 million, and they're coming out of ESSER funds. And then we've got a couple other smaller ESSER fund projects at Laverne High and Oakland High School. They're a couple $100,000 each. So we're trying to attack different things as we go forward. This 5-year building program, one thing I want to kind of piggyback on something Mr. Spurlock said, is to give you some projections for next year for what we're looking at. If these projects are to go forward, they're 18-month projects. Depending on materials and construction, they could be as long as 2 years, but we're projecting 18 to 19 months with current things. So, and I just run through them right quick. Smyrna High School projected next year 2244. That's an increase of a little over 100. They're currently sitting at 99% capacity with 15 portables. Riverdale High School's at 1804, as Mr. Spurlock said. Their 22-23 projection is 2057. That's the largest increase of any of the high schools, and part of that's rezoning. Some of the children back from Blackman. They are currently at 88%, 6 portables. Blackman High School, 22-23 projection is 2069. 86% capacity and 4 portables. Oakland High School, 2057 would be their projections for next year. They're currently sitting at 93% with 10 portables. Laverne High School's projection for next year is 2133. They're currently sitting at 96% capacity with 7 portables. So that kind of gives you an idea of where each of these schools sit, what we're projecting for next year, their percent capacity, and their portable situation. Something else that you all typically ask of me when we come before you with building programs, when do you need approval? When does design start? When do you start construction? And when do you think you're going to be finished? All of these projects are going to vary maybe a month or two, but for conversation's sake, we're going to say they're all 18 to 20 months. These projects are not going to be easy just because we're working in a live school zone. It's not like a new school where we have lots of acreage and we can go out there and just kind of be construction folks. They have to, it takes a whole lot more coordination. And some of these schools, especially Oakland or Riverdale, their existing utility structures and where those utilities are, we'll have to do some relocations. So we typically try and schedule those summers, breaks, that sort of thing, so it may delay a certain area a little bit before it could actually get started. So we're looking at approval sometime in March. We would like to be out for bid by mid-August, with a bid opening of mid-September, which would allow construction to start in October of this year. And all of these projects would be slated somewhere between spring break and August of 2024. So that's, when you hear 2024, that kind of, it's 2 years out or a year and a half out from where we are today.
You know, one of the things he mentioned about, it's unique about renovating or adding on to high schools is you got more kids there too, and then that's going to create some challenges for us. Would probably prolong it a little bit more than he's probably giving it. He's being very conservative with it. I would say we're on some of those. It could almost be 2 years. Yeah.
Mr. Gurley, you had a question?
Yes, I have a question. First of all, I'd like to thank you for looking at adding to schools versus building new ones. That's something a couple of us here have been proponents of for quite some time. And the second question is, if you could get approval tonight to build onto two of these schools, which would be your 2 priorities?
I would probably go back to the school board and ask them what the priority would be. But obviously, I think we know that Blackman would provide us some help because we know Stewart's Creek is staring us in the face.
I agree.
Yeah,
and
so
it has no place to
Blackman
go.
would be one of them, and Riverdale would be the other one. Now, the board may disagree with me, so I'm just telling you what I thought.
Well, I'm seeing Smyrna and Laverne at 90-something% occupancy already, one at 99 and one at 96. I agree on the Blackman part, but
We could probably impact some of Smyrna with Blackman, too.
with Blackman too. Mm-hmm. I'm just seeing the tremendous growth. Of course, growth is everywhere, but You know, I think something that I read about that the school board is looking at, and I would commend them for doing that, is getting involved with more detail on the upfront planning of where we're going to get hit at, because census predictions and so on just don't hack it in today's environment. You know, I'm seeing places where 1 week there's nothing, and the next week there are 15 houses. The slabs have been poured. The frame is going up because they're hauling it in there on trucks. I'm seeing now even with the windows in it. So they're putting the sides of the house up with windows already in them. And within a week, you have a dried-in house with a roof on it. And within 30 days, you've got a new house, period, ready to go on the market. And that's how fast they're building them. We're not talking about 6 months to build a house. It's being done in a factory somewhere, hauled in there, and putting them up. And so I think we're going to have some eyes on the ground and looking at what's going on. But I urge you to think about this, because I'm not sure, I speak for me, that we can fund all 5 of these additions this year. So to the school board members that are sitting back there, go back and think about it. If you have to limit this, where are your priorities? I agree with Blackman being one of them.
Commissioner Blair, you have a question?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Mr. Spurlock, these projected numbers, of course, you grew, 1,800 students just this year?
That's correct.
In my tenure, dating back to 2006, even through the economic downturn in 2008, we still grew at 1,000 students.
That's correct.
Even in an economically depressed time. But the projected populations, does that include rezoning and growth, or just rezoning, moving children around?
We know the rezoning, you know, the board chose to do it, you know, starting with 9th grade and then grandfather the rest, but you'll have some that, because in grandfathering, they have to have transportation. So you're looking at about 200 coming to Riverdale just from the rezoning part.
You know, the commission and the school board we've had such a great relationship over the years, and the commission has always tried to fulfill those needs, but we've always lagged a little bit behind trying to be good stewards of the tax dollars. But from my situation, looking at it, we are drowning in students right now. And my concern is that you have to have a seat for these children. And we already know how expensive pulling in trailers are, and hooking them up and getting them situated, and they continue to grow old. And, you know, we've got some tough choices to make here, but, you know, expansion has always been a priority of the commission, and this is exactly what you have brought to us. And I'm concerned that if we don't move forward, that we're going to get so behind that we'll never be able to catch up.
I'm sure everyone's aware, even the planning for the subdivision out there near Rockvale Elementary. Now, we're adding an addition on Rockvale Elementary, and we know how many homes. I think that was it, how many, 95?
That was in the last one, yes, sir.
Okay, it was in the last one. So, yeah, and I live very close to you, and we know what it looks like down there. I mean, you go down the road one day, and it looks totally different from what you remember. You know, but, yeah, we know this is tough, and quite frankly, we're really, currently, if you add in our pre-K, we're close to 49,750 kids. We'll surpass 50,000 easily next year.
Any other questions for the director or Trey? Commissioner Phillips?
Not so much a question, but just a thought, a suggestion. We several years ago.
Commissioner, will you speak closer to your microphone? I'm not sure everybody can hear you.
Is that better?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, sorry. Several years ago, we said build bigger schools. Instead of building them so close together, build bigger schools and expand the schools that we had. And the addition to these high schools is exactly what this commissioner and I think this committee is looking for. So I commend you and the school board for bringing us this proposal. The issue that we have is eating the whole apple at one sitting. And it would be my suggestion that this committee endorse the adding on to these 5 high schools, spreading it out either over a 2 or 3 year period of time. If we can do it in 2 years, that's what I would prefer to do. So I'm not sure that would be a proper motion, but if the chairman thinks, if the chairwoman thinks that is a proper motion, that would be my motion, is that this committee endorses the addition onto all of these 5 high schools. We ask the school board to set the priority as to when that happens over a 2 year period of time.
I'm not quite ready for a motion yet. There's a couple other things I want us to talk about first, but I do appreciate that.
Could I follow up on
Yeah,
that?
please.
The design phase, it would really be beneficial even for the ones that you may not fund, to fund the design phase of it, so that, okay, 6 million total for the,
5, 7.
okay, is that for all of them?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
5,700,000.
$5,700,000.
Commissioner Blair?
Madam Chairman, I guess I'm going to muddy the water a little bit, and I see the need that we have at these high schools, but looking at the northern end of the county with the 400, and I mentioned this the last time, the 400 unit apartment complex there on Lowry, the 600 homes that are going in on the Gwynn property, the 600 homes that's going in on Waldron and Blair. Right before I left the board, we added on to Rock Springs Elementary, and I understand it's presently at capacity. Rock Springs Middle, I believe, is at capacity. Is Rocky Fork Middle and Rocky Fork Elementary?
We actually got some room there at Rocky Fork Middle. We got a little bit of room to play with right there. But unfortunately, they're building around it, so anything that we would move out of there in the next 2 or 3 years would fill it back up.
And I'm concerned that that every grade level is at capacity right now, and I'm not sure that we can. Well, we can't fix all of it at one time. There's no doubt about that. But I think we're going to have to be robust. We seem to like that word these days quite a bit, and I appreciate the chairman's intention and motion, because I'd certainly like to support it. And maybe we eat this elephant in a couple of bites rather than in one big one.
Commissioner Gurley?
I think, as was stated, we're looking at a lot of growth. We've got to get our better handle on it in terms of planning, which I see positive steps being taken by the school board in that regard. But I fully agree with Superintendent Lee that we need to go on and get moving on the design phase of this. You can't build it till you design it. We don't know until the architect can do their due diligence and see. It may come out that there's issues with land, with design, et cetera, until you get into that, you really don't know. So I'm going to make a motion. If I can read, I've got my bifocals in for replacement lens, so I'm going to have to look at this. I'm going to make a motion that we fund the design phases of all three of the school in the amount of $5,700,000. Is that correct?
5 of them.
Well, yeah, all 5 of these schools, Riverdale, Smyrna, Laverne, Blackman, and Oakland, the design phase of that for $5,700,000. Like I said, my glasses are being fixed, so I'm having a little trouble. But that way we get on with the design. We come back next month. I think you're looking for a decision on this. School board can do their due diligence between now and then and decide what we can fund. But for right now, we get moving with the design phase before any more time lapse.
Is there a second for that motion? I really wasn't, but but we do have a motion on the floor. Okay, then we're not ready for it. So we're going to say that was going to die for lack of a second. The questions I have are, Mr. Swirlick, the BEP is under review, and so we don't know yet what impact that might have on construction dollars. From what I understand, they're looking at considering that. So how should that factor into our future planning on how we're going to fund these?
Well, you know, he's going to have a briefing, the governor is. I think it is Thursday. I could be wrong, but I think it's Thursday. He's going to have a briefing on it. Now,
Speaking of the microphone so they can hear.
as I understand it, the governor's going to have a briefing on Thursday, but as I understand it, right now the funding formula, the student allocated funding formula would not take place until 23-24.
So it's down the road, so beyond this. The other question I have is, Stewart's Creek Elementary is at 122% capacity. What's the plan for it?
Well, to get more kids in than what we currently have. There are some things we can do structure-wise, am I correct, inside the school? We've looked at some of the classrooms where we can actually take them and make 2 classrooms out of them, divide them.
We think we can get a few more.
To the microphone.
Yeah.
We think we can get a few more in there by possibly adding some walls. We're in the process next week. I'm going to go down there with some of my design team. The school has done an absolutely amazing job. We have every book storage room, every teacher's closet. We've bought them Dutch barns to move their things that are not weather sensitive. We moved everything out of the building we can move out to make every space available for a child. So we're going to go back, reassess it, see what their numbers look like actually in place to see if we can get a few more in there. And then we're going to look to see if we can get one more portable in.
And that was going to be one of my questions. I know I was at that meeting on Saturday, so I know where you went over the cost of adding and moving portables. Will you share that with this committee?
Well, we just bid out portables again. A new single's about $100,000, depending upon, and they're only holding their price for 15 days. So every time I get, if we were to need one, I'd have to rebid it again, but they're about $115,000. If we move our own, let me stay with the new one. If we do buy a new one, that cost includes delivery and setup. They put it together, but we still have to build the ramps. We have to provide the electrical, the fire alarm, and the PA system, and then we have to outfit it with tables and chairs and teacher setups. We used to be able to maintain a certain supply, but a lot of our furniture's gotten old. It no longer fits today's student. So we've gradually gotten rid of that, and we kept the current functional students. We keep about 5% on hand. That 5%'s gone. It's all the new students has gobbled it up, because we typically anticipate 1,000 students across the district, and we had 1,800 this year, so we used everything we had. And we've bought more, and we're going through the budget process. Mr. Beaudry's back there looking at me now. We're going to buy some more furniture next year for next year's growth. And we're also looking at some of our schools that does have the older furniture. We're in the process of gradually changing that furniture out. So we have to have furniture for it. If we move our own portable, it's between $7,000 and $12,000 just to move it. We typically spend between $3,000 and $5,000 to build the ramp. It's between $4,000 and $5,000 to get the electrical hooked up. And then you have the PA, the fire alarm, and then the furniture. So average cost is somewhere around $20,000. It's not for a double. Average cost is probably about $25,000. Every time we move one. This summer, we moved 23. Mr. Beaudry and I budgeted close to $500,000 to move. Now, that's the largest move we've ever undertaken. Typically, it's 6 to 10, but we moved 23 this year. There currently, and has been the 14 years that I've been with the county system, there's always more of a demand than we have available to get.
So will you do me a favor, and next month, will you follow back up with us after you do your assessment of Stewart's Creek Elementary? Because I am highly concerned at that 122% that we're not dealing with that. The other one that I'm concerned about is Blackman Elementary. It's at 109%. What's the plan for it?
Well, on that side of the building, we're not able to place any more portables, but we have looked at the other side. We do have another option, so we're looking at some portables that I'll know soon what's coming available, and we will anticipate moving at least one, if not two, more portables to Blackman Elementary.
Will you give us an update on that next month as well?
Yes, ma'am. I will.
One of the challenges with Stewart's Creek Elementary is the space available. We've actually, when we looked at it, we're actually taking some road frontage up.
Stewart's Creek Elementary, like a lot of our schools, was not designed to be added onto. Getting creative, thinking out of the box. The backside, which is normally where we would add on, is where all the geothermal wells are. So that knocks our largest open area for expansion out because it's full of the geothermal wells. So we looked at the side that faces the high school. And if you've been there, there's a line, access road where they do student pickup and drop off beside that side. We're going to take that road out, is what we're proposing to do, and actually make a long turning lane. So there's still going to be that third
Stacking
lane there. It's just not going to be off Red Hawk Parkway. It's actually going to be adjacent and part of Red Hawk. That will allow us to add 16 classrooms onto Stewart's Creek Elementary. Now, we can do that and still get by with our electric geothermal that's there. We'll handle that. It will put us pretty close to maxing out. It's not going to give us any comfort zone if we were to have an issue or something like that we have now. But engineers and architects say we can do it.
Okay, so also on these high school additions, I know one of the concerns has always been the core capacity of the building, lunchroom, media centers, those kinds of things.
Yeah,
How are we addressing that?
Yeah, that would be, we'd have to add on to our core, our cafeteria, our auditorium and gym, those kind of things.
So are those things factored into the addition you've designed?
It is factored in, it is.
Yes, we've looked at that. I don't want to get too deep into this, but
But it's more than classrooms. You've considered that as part of the
we've
design.
considered that. We looked at one of the things we can't do at an Oakland or a Riverdale, and I've met with both principals numerous times. One of the things we can't do is increase the hallway space. It is what it is. Those schools were built in 1972. They were built for 1,500 students. The hallways are about 8 or 9 feet wide. So one of the things we looked at with the proposed additions is we're going to take that 10 to 12 foot wide hallway that we have at our new high schools, and we're going to take it outboard. We're going to put it in the new addition. We're going to run that new addition from one end, and we're going to cross the road, and we're going to tie it into the annex. So it's going to be contiguous
The corridor.
from the annex there. Then with help from the principals, one of their suggestions was if we could do that, then they would take their high-demand core classes, English, math, all the things that everybody really has to a lot of take. We're going to move them out into the new annex. Then you would take your other classes that have less demand and you move them inbound, so we take the pressure off the existing buildings and shift it outbound to the new addition, and then we put those large corridors there and make that the new transition, and then your older corridors become access to the main corridor. So there's things like that we've looked at, expansion of the cafeterias, those kind. When 13 years ago, the very first project that I did when I came here was the additions to Oakland or Riverdale. And at that time, the kitchens were expanded and the loading dock was moved out. Those kitchens are of size that they will handle the additional capacity. What it is not is the cafeteria itself. So there again, working with the two principals, we've come up with a way to take space, shift it over to other areas so that I can have contiguous space with their cafeterias, which enlarges their cafeterias. When you go to Smyrna, Laverne, that doesn't work. We haven't expanded those kitchens. We'll have to do both. We'll have to do what we did at Oakland or Riverdale 12 years ago. We'll have to move the kitchens out, move the loading docks, expand the kitchens, and be able to expand the cafeteria. So all of those kind of things are taken into account.
And we may recapture some square footage, but we will not be taking any classrooms.
Correct.
And so I guess the last question I have is around security. When you add this much more square footage, when you add this many more bodies, are we going to need additional SROs at these high schools?
I think you would have to. Quite frankly, we've got 2 in our larger schools now. We're having a hard time staffing these already, are we? Mr. Marshall, you're out there. Is that a yes or a no? I mean, it's difficult. It's difficult. It's like anything else, but yes, it would be a concern.
Commissioner Blair?
Just a comment that I'm hopeful that when you're ready to entertain a motion, Madam Chairman, that you will incorporate Chairman Phillips and Commissioner Gurley's motion, that they'll be able to make those come together, because I like both ideas of going ahead and approving the design, and also being optimistic towards moving these projects forward.
They are very articulate gentlemen, and I am confident we can do that when we get to that point. There's one other thing I would like for us to do. I asked for Ms. Nolan to join us. She has a tool that she showed us several years ago, and I rely on it heavily every time we have this conversation. She has basically it's an amortization schedule for our debt, and she can tell you at what point our tax rate covers the debt that we carry. And so it helps us anticipate when and where and how this would impact the tax rate. So that's why I asked her to be here. Ready.
Okay, so you're going to get a little accounting in this, and I'll try not to make it too deep, but please, y'all stop and ask me questions if any of it makes sense. But I'm going to start off with, it took us as a county many years, I'll say at least 15 years, to get a bond rating of a AAA from Moody's. I say that as a premise because we have a good fund balance in the debt service fund, and that is a huge component of that rating. I say that because I don't want y'all to spend it all. Okay, so we start off with, in looking at our debt, is that big enough, y'all? I don't know if those in the back want to come closer to see. I've got it at 150. Let me see if I can zoom it. Put it down for 200. That's a little better. I may just have to scoot around. So I put a growth factor. This is of the 3%, and we know next year is a reappraisal year, and that's always dicey of what happens in reappraisal, because we've got to get back down to a neutral rate for the commissioners to decide whether or not we're going to make any change. So this schedule just is set so hopefully we have at least 3% growth. That might be a little low. Our penny growth, this column here is showing you how much the penny actually increased over time. You see jumps, that's in a reappraisal year. You just kind of get a assessment of how much pennies right now. 47 cents of the $2.22 of the property tax goes to fund debt service. So based on the penny for this year, $47 million is what's generated off that penny. We have development tax, it's adequate facility tax. We've estimated $6 million for the year. Half of it goes in the development tax, the other half, goes to your education capital projects. We estimated $3 million right now. We may not get $3 million this year. We estimate interest earnings. We get money coming in from the rent of the Lane Agri Park, and we also have money coming in from the Airport Authority because we are paying some bonds for them. They're paying it, it just kind of runs through the debt service. So this just kind of gives you an idea of what we're projecting revenue, because all this is, we know how much it's going to cost us, how much are we going to have coming in. 3 components: how much money we got, how much it's going to cost, how much we got in the bank. Those are your 3 components. So currently, and let me zoom this up to 200. Get most of it on here. Currently at requirements for the debt that we have issued, already on the table, fixed rate, the current year is at $56 million. We have other expenses. Y'all know trustees commission that y'all, well, there's commission in every fund, so part of that cost is in here as an expenditure. The revenue I just told you about, pennies and all the different things coming in. So this year, budgeted a little more of a deficit, but had estimated interest payment higher than what it actually was when we did borrow the money. So our projected fund balance at the end of this year is $47.8 million, and we go through our revenue adjustments in June, we get this number a little closer. So our fund balance requirement used to be a straight 75%. The commission adopted a policy where it is built. It's not complicated, but it's just easier to say we don't want to get below 65% of our fund balance. So you can see these are the arrows. What are we doing in the current year? What is it going to look like after the year end? Our projected fund balance for this year is $47 million. With a 65% requirement, we need $37 million. We are $10 million above our requirement. We started the year with our fund balance at 80%. So just so you know, so we've got all those components. Now this is where we kind of sit and say, what if? What happens if?
Can you zoom that one, Lisa?
Yes. So estimating for every $1 million is between $75,000 that it costs for debt service, that's principal and interest payments. I've got in here 71. We can do, what happens if the interest rate goes up. That affects that rate. So I will start with what the ask is. The 137. 37. Oh, good grief. This thing is sensitive here. Three don't work. 7. I really can type better than this. Okay. So that's what happens Again, that's calculating $71,000 for every $1 million borrowed. And this is assuming that we're borrowing it this year, so you have full principal and interest next fiscal year. That estimates $9 million. It puts our fund balance at 38, the requirement's at 42. We are already under our requirement next year. You're going to have to, you would have used all your available fund balance, plus more you're going to have to add. So that's
Yes.
the, yes. So this, it's like, okay, so what if we spread this out and we don't do it all? What if we do 70, 75, or 50? 75, 70. Board. All right, we're at 5. What does that do to our fund balance? We are under our requirement, but we know the school board's going to come in the next year and ask for the next group. Right? 75? What does that do to us? Okay, it creates our problem in this year, in the third year. This was scary when we did
90s.
90. That we were looking at, so what are we going to do? What's this going to look like? That's really ugly. Yeah, it creates the problem in the third year, not next fiscal year, but the one after that.
So do you see why that's helpful to help us understand sort of the impact of when and how we borrow and how much we borrow?
And
So-
then if interest rates go up,
So take us back to that 75 number.
yeah, it's a much bigger problem in that third year, 23, 24. Of course, you know, I can do the numbers, but you've got to say what's really happening, you know, what do you need, and what's the effect? And that's, to me, is what this tool is for. It's like you come in and you say, school board, this is what we need. We can look at this and say, okay, we can kind of project, not only this, but you know yourselves, you've got the effect of the operations, of the additional cost of operations of these newer, touched on with the SROs.
Any questions for Lisa?
Any
Commissioner-
scenario you want to try?
Commissioner Blair?
I have a question for Mr. Lee. Of course, you know the commission we enjoy additions much more than a new footprint. If we had to build a brand spanking new high school in today's, I know it makes you cringe, but what would you project a new high school would cost at today's values?
Minimum of $100 million. And that's the same school we just built for 60,
How
whatever.
much did you say?
Yes, sir, it'd be close to $100 million.
And so Trey, if we were to, let's say we applied the building plan that you've got laid out, how much would we need to borrow in the next 3 years to catch up? Or even just stay on pace, right?
Madam Chairman, would you say okay? Just to stay okay?
Yeah, just to say okay.
I would, conservatively, the 5 high schools additions, and you're looking at 137 million plus the following year at 39.8, so 60, 70, about 176 million. But there again, I'm going to go back to Commissioner Phillips. They're all additions. There's not a new school in it.
That was my question is, if we planned for what year would you think you'd need to build a school?
These elementaries, it's not going away.
I think that with what the board has chosen to do, of hiring someone in to determine, I think that would drive, we would know more from an outside source coming in and looking at that. They could project that probably better than Mr. Lee could do.
What
No
what
offense,
consultant
Mr.
is
Lee.
that?
That's okay.
What consultant is that you said would hire?
I think they're looking at, I don't know if they've had him.
They're looking at,
Is that the rezoning consultant?
Right.
yes.
Okay,
Well, it's basically growth consultant.
growth consultant, okay.
Clarksville, Montgomery did it, Williamson County did it a few years back.
But based on what we see right now, that would be, if you're asking me tonight, 176.
Over the next 3 years?
Madam Chairman?
Yes, Commissioner Gurley?
Yeah, I think the one thing that we don't know what will have the impact, you mentioned it here a few minutes ago, is the coming year is reappraisal year. We see we can't go up, but we're going to see some growth from, I think, the valuation on stuff. It's crazy right now, and you're going to see the result of that. A house that I sold several years ago for $32,000 sold. It's still the same 1890 house, but it sold a week ago for $285,000. I couldn't believe it. It's still the same old 1890 house.
I saw that in Smyrna this week. There was a
But
house.
But
that
it
was-
sits on almost 2 acres of land right by Stewart's Creek Schools, and it's highly in demand, the land right there is.
Listen, the house I saw was over by Smyrna Elementary off Sam Davis, and it sold several years ago for $300,000, sold this week for $809.
The problem with that is it's going to drive my valuation up, and you and me and everyone else lives in that general area are going to be paying more taxes. But it gets to the point. We will be paying more taxes. And I too have gone to Ms. Nolan and asked to look at this tool several times over the last few years, and it scares you at a certain point because you know that when you start seeing those deficits on what you've got to have in terms of fund balance, you're going to have to raise taxes. And I feel confident within the next 2 to 3 years, we're probably going to have to raise taxes. There's going to be a point in time where we just simply cannot get around it. And
Well, that's exactly why I asked and encouraged the school board to just swing for the fences. Tell us exactly what it is you need. Knowing we can't give it all, but we needed to know what the need was.
that's what I would really ask, rather than just any kind of motion tonight. Let's just, school board members, go back, look at things, prioritize, come back to us next month and tell us what you absolutely have to have, because as you can see, as well as we can see from these numbers, we're right on the borderline of what we can do and can't do without a substantial tax increase. So give us those priorities like I asked for. I have to agree with the director right here that Blackman's probably because it sits in the center of a whole bunch of things, is a critical thing, and which other one or two or whatever is that's not our job. That's the school board's job. Our job is to fund, but I think what we're saying tonight, we're going to have a hard time funding this, so come back and give us some real good numbers on what you do want to do in a month, and we'll bite the bullet and do it.
My question for you, Doug, is this. I know Trey said that you'd like to get the design money tonight. Do we have internal funds for that? Where would that be funded from? I need you to say that into a microphone.
Come on, Doug.
We have some funds allocated in the building fund for future secondary projects of around, I believe it's around $500,000, and we could utilize those and, to start some basic design, and
Are y'all going to be buying the land? Are y'all going to be buying land anytime soon?
we would love it if we found some out in the west.
Well, I'm just saying that's about 5 million sitting there too, until we.
Correct, ma'am. Yeah, I see your point. Yeah, I mean, we could start with that. Yeah, so to answer your question, yes, there's some funding there that if this body is okay with us utilizing land and also just the secondary.
Internal funds.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And that's currently in the building program.
Commissioner Phillips, I believe you were
There it is.
first on deck with a motion. If you've got anything you'd like to share.
Let me kind of back up on the original motion and kind of try my best to incorporate
Hold your microphone a little closer. Thank you.
what Joe was mentioning a minute ago as it related to, Commissioner Gurley was mentioning. I think the design is extremely important, but I also think it's critical that we endorse the addition of these schools. What was the sixth one that you mentioned? What was the sixth one that's coming up?
Well, there's 5 high schools,
And then the six would.
then the 3 behind it are Blackman Elementary.
Speaking to the mic.
The 3 coming behind it is Blackman Elementary, Stewart's Creek Elementary, and then probably, if we had a 7th, it would be Stewart's Creek Middle, but the 2 priorities would be Stewart's Creek Elementary and Blackman Elementary Annex. So the 5 high schools and then the 2 elementaries.
What I would really like to see is this committee endorse that building program. Approve tonight the design work for those additions. Then allow the school board to prioritize all of those schools and what year they could come in. As an example, you could do design work and one of the high schools next year, to the next and to the next, that kind of thing. And that's what I would be looking for. But if I can make a motion, it would be
Yes.
to approve the design work this year. Also, fully endorse the building program as it relates to the additions that we're talking about, and ask the school board to prioritize those additions and report back over the next 2 to 3 years what those that priority list would be.
Really, we need the priority list next month, right? We need the priority list next month, right? Okay, so you want to fund the design phase for all. You want to endorse the concept of the plan to add on to 5.
That should be number one, and endorse the concept, and support the concept, and then the design work, and then the priority list.
And so the design money up to 5.7, or do you want to, is that what you need? Internal.
Land
right.
and internal, yes, internal in the building program.
I understand the motion.
That 5.7, I'm afraid that goes up daily or weekly.
Right.
So I'm concerned that we go ahead and make that available as soon as possible.
Second.
Okay, Commissioner Blair, very good. Any questions or discussion about the motion? Yes, reread the motion for us, please. Do you have it? Yes, so we're going to endorse the concept of the plan of these additions as recommended by the Board of Education, these high schools. We're going to allocate allow them to use internal funds of $5.7 million for design. And then next month, we'd like for them to report back on a priority building program of which schools come in which order. And then we can discuss funding from that point. That the motion is understood? Okay. Roll call vote?
Commissioner Cook? Commissioner Blair?
Yes.
Commissioner Virgil Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips.
Aye.
Chairman Allen.
Yes. You have anything else for us, Doug?
Ma'am, I have one other item. It's good news. I know we talked a lot about funding, but this is good news. We have Smyrna Ready Mix. You probably saw it in the local newspaper. Smyrna Ready Mix has given a very generous donation towards Smyrna High School for some enhanced, like a turf project and some other items for improvements out there for their athletic departments. What I'm asking this committee tonight is basically we want to expedite this process so we can get this businessman what he is donating for this turf. I'd like to expedite the process so we can have them go ahead and start hopefully installing turf in April. So then the children will have it when they get back to school next fall. So basically what I'm requesting is that this committee approve the concept of a turf plan, which currently right now, how we're going to run this is we're going to have, right now we're bidding out the turf project in my office with purchasing. So I can, between $800,000 to $900,000 is what this project is probably going to run. We'll know that once the bids are open. Next month on March 10th, this will be in front of the Board of Education for their approval of the bid, as well as the amendment we'll bring this was 100% donated funds that's going to fund this project. And my request is going to be to the BOE and then to the Budget Committee, and of course with you giving the nod tonight, that this would actually run through the Education Capital Project Fund. So this donor could deposit his money as a donation, through his company to the Fund 177 fund, and then all the construction would be budgeted through that fund. And that way, like I said, we could very quickly, Mr. Lee and I have been working, he's been working on the engineering side with that high school to make sure, we really want to have this where we can show businesses that we can expedite projects that they would like to donate to, large projects like this. So my request to this committee is that you would approve this project in its concept with the actual amendment coming before the Budget Committee after the board approves it on March 10th.
That's a dedicated restricted fund for this project.
Yes, ma'am, through Fund 177. And like I said, I do not have a number yet because we're putting the bid out next week.
That is a proper motion, yes. Excuse me.
Motion to approve.
Second, very good. Go ahead and call the roll. I mean, we're not really spending our money, but it is money, so go ahead and call the roll on that for us.
Commissioner Blair.
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon.
Yes.
Commissioner Cook. Commissioner Phillips. Commissioner Gurley.
Yes.
Chairman Allen.
Yes. Thank you very much. And anyone who wishes to, I really wish you would express your appreciation to Smyrna Ready Mix. The day that I read about that in the paper, I sent a text message and told them, I've been up here for 12 years fighting for schools and school improvements, and when classrooms are in such high demand, there's just no way to advocate for stadium improvements. So if it wasn't for the generosity of businesses like that, I can't imagine that this would ever happen for that school. So I just encourage everybody to appreciate those businesses that do step up and give back. Is there anything else for this committee? Mayor, do you have anything?
No, ma'am.
Okay, very good. All right, we are adjourned. Thank you.